Hello and welcome to the Drowsy Architect. This is a channel where we tell the stories of the world's greatest buildings, slowly, gently, as bedtime stories for grown-ups. The narration is calm, the music is soft, and if you fall asleep before the end, that is exactly what we're here for. Tonight, we travel to the mountains of northern China, where a wall stretches across the landscape like a sleeping dragon. 13,000 miles, 2,000 years, built by millions of hands to hold back the horsemen of the steppe. The Great Wall of China. Now settle in and let us begin. Imagine that you are standing on a wall. Not a garden wall, not a city wall, not any wall that you have ever seen or could easily picture in your mind. This wall is different. This wall runs across the spine of a mountain range, climbing steep ridges and plunging into deep valleys and climbing again, mile after mile after mile, until it disappears into the haze of distance and the gathering dark. You are standing on the Great Wall of China. It is night. The last light has drained from the sky above the mountains, and the stars are beginning to appear, one by one, faint at first, and then brighter, scattered across the darkness like sparks from a fire that has been burning since the beginning of time. The stone beneath your feet is old, older than you can easily imagine. It has been walked on by soldiers and merchants and emperors and farmers and refugees and pilgrims and invaders and tourists and foxes and wild goats and the wind. The wind has walked on it more than anything else. Tonight, the wind is gentle. It moves along the wall from the west, carrying the scent of dust and dry grass and the faint mineral smell of ancient stone that has been heating in the sun all day and is only now, slowly, giving up its warmth to the evening air. The wall stretches away from you in both directions. To the east, it climbs over a ridge and vanishes. To the west, it descends into a valley where the shadows have already pooled like dark water and then rises again on the far side. A pale line against the darker mountains, climbing toward another watchtower silhouetted against the sky. There are watchtowers everywhere, every few hundred meters. A square stone tower rises above the wall. Some are intact, some are crumbling, some have lost their roofs and their upper floors and stand open to the sky like broken teeth. But their outlines are unmistakable, regular, rhythmic, marching across the landscape like sentries frozen in stone. This is where we are tonight, on the Great Wall, in the mountains north of Beijing. In the quiet hours after the last hikers have gone and before the first light of morning, just you and the wall and the stars and the slow, patient wind. We are going to tell the whole story tonight. From the first crude barriers of packed earth built along the northern frontier 3,000 years ago, to the magnificent stone and brick fortifications of the Ming Dynasty, to the crumbling wild sections that hikers explore today. It is a story that spans more than 2 millennia, a story of emperors and soldiers and workers and nomads, a story of fear and ambition and engineering and sacrifice. It is the story of the longest structure ever built by human hands, and one of the most extraordinary. Let us begin. The first thing to understand about the Great Wall of China is that it is not one wall. This surprises people. The name suggests a single continuous structure, a line drawn across the map of China from one end to the other, like a fence around a garden, and the photographs reinforce this idea. You have seen them, a stone wall snaking across green mountains, watchtowers at regular intervals, crenellations along the top, a single unbroken line stretching to the horizon. But the truth is more complicated and more interesting. The Great Wall is a system, a collection of walls built over more than 2,000 years by different dynasties in different places using different materials for different reasons. Some of these walls run parallel to each other, some overlap, some have gaps of hundreds of miles between them, some were built of stone, some of brick, some of rammed earth, some of nothing more than packed sand and gravel and the dried stalks of desert plants. If you were to measure every wall that has ever been called part of the Great Wall, every section built by every dynasty from the 7th century before Christ to the 17th century after it, the total length would be more than 21,000 kilometers, 13,000 miles. That is more than half the circumference of the Earth. But no single wall stretches that distance. No single wall was ever intended to. The Great Wall is not a wall, it is an idea that persisted across 2 millennia through the rise and fall of dynasties, through invasions and revolutions and centuries of neglect, an idea so powerful that even when the walls crumbled and the watchtowers collapsed and the garrisons were abandoned, the idea remained, and the next dynasty would look north. At the vast, open grasslands and the horsemen who rode them, and the idea would stir again. Build a wall. Keep them out. It is one of the oldest ideas in human history, and nowhere in all the world has it been pursued with more persistence, more labor, more stone and earth and human life than here in the mountains and deserts and grasslands of northern China. To understand why the wall was built, you must first understand the geography. China is divided, roughly, into 2 zones. The south is wet, lush, green, rice paddies and rivers and dense forests and the smell of rain. The north is drier, harder, the landscape flattens and opens, the rivers are fewer, the soil is poorer, and as you travel further north, the farmland gives way to grassland, to steppe, to an immense open plain that stretches from northern China across Mongolia and Central Asia all the way to the edges of Europe. This steppe is the domain of the nomads. For thousands of years, peoples who did not farm, who did not build cities, who lived on horseback and followed their herds of sheep and cattle and horses across the open grassland, occupied this vast territory. They were superb riders, superb archers. They could cover enormous distances in a day, appearing suddenly at the edge of the settled world, raiding a village or a town, and vanishing back into the grassland before any army could respond. The frontier between the farmland and the grassland, between the settled and the nomadic, between China and the steppe, is one of the most significant boundaries in human history. It runs roughly along the line where the annual rainfall drops below about 400 millimeters. Above that line, you can grow crops. Below it, you cannot. The land is too dry, too harsh, too exposed. The only way to live there is to move, to follow the grass, to be a nomad. This frontier is not a sharp line. It shifts with the climate. In wet centuries, the farmland pushes north. In dry centuries, the desert and the grassland push south. The boundary breathes, expanding and contracting like the chest of a sleeping giant. And along this boundary, for more than 2,000 years, the Chinese built walls. The story of the Great Wall begins not with a single dramatic moment, but with a slow accumulation of fear. By the 8th century before Christ, China is not yet a single country. It is a collection of states, kingdoms, principalities, each ruled by its own lord or king, each competing with its neighbors for territory and power. This is the period that historians call the Spring and Autumn period, a time of shifting alliances and constant warfare, when the old Zhou dynasty still nominally rules but has lost all real power. And the individual states are fighting among themselves like wolves over a carcass. In the north, several of these states share a border with the steppe: the state of Yan, in what is now the area around Beijing, the state of Zhao, further west, the state of Qin, in the northwest. These northern states have a problem that their southern neighbors do not. They have nomads on their border, horsemen who raid their farms, who steal their cattle, who burn their villages, who appear without warning and disappear without trace. The nomads cannot be defeated in the traditional way. You cannot march an army against them, because they have no cities to besiege, no castles to storm, no fixed positions to attack. When a Chinese army marches north, the nomads simply ride away. They scatter across the grassland like sparrows startled from a field. They wait, they watch. And when the army turns south again, exhausted and hungry and far from home, the nomads return, and the raiding begins again. It is a problem without a military solution. You cannot conquer an enemy who will not stand and fight. You cannot hold territory that is too vast and too empty to garrison. You cannot protect a frontier that stretches for thousands of miles across mountains and deserts and open plains. Unless you build a wall. The steppe is not empty, it is not a wasteland. It is one of the richest grasslands on Earth, stretching in an unbroken sweep from the mountains north of China, across Mongolia and Central Asia, all the way to the plains of Hungary. If you could fly above it, you would see an ocean of grass, green in the brief summer, golden in autumn, brown and frozen in the long winter. It ripples in the wind like water. It is enormous, it is beautiful, and it is full of people. The nomads who live here are not savages. They have their own civilization, their own art, their own laws, their own poetry. They work gold and bronze with extraordinary skill. They breed horses that are the envy of the settled world. They live in felt tents, called jur in Mongolian and yurt in Turkic, that can be assembled and dismantled in an hour. These tents are warm in winter and cool in summer. They are waterproof. They are portable. They are one of the great inventions of human architecture, a building that can be picked up and moved with its inhabitants. The nomads follow the grass. In summer, they move north to the high pastures where the grass is fresh and the air is cool. In autumn, they move south to the sheltered valleys where the winter is less fierce. Their lives are governed by the seasons and the needs of their animals. They measure wealth not in gold or land, but in horses and cattle and sheep. A man with 1,000 horses is rich. A man without horses is nothing. And from time to time, when the grass fails, when the winters are too harsh, when there are too many mouths to feed and not enough pasture, the nomads look south, at the farmland, at the grain stores, at the comfortable settled world that lies just beyond the mountains, and they ride. The earliest walls are simple things, mounds of packed earth, ditches, low barriers built along the most vulnerable stretches of the frontier, where the valleys are wide and the terrain is flat, and the horsemen can ride south without obstacle. The state of Kai, in the east, builds a wall as early as the 7th century before Christ, but this wall is not on the northern frontier. It faces south. It is designed to keep out other Chinese states, not nomads. It is a political wall, a territorial marker, a statement of sovereignty. This is mine, stay out. The northern states begin building their own walls somewhat later. The state of Zhao constructs walls along its northern border in the 4th century before Christ. The state of Yuan does the same. These walls are defensive. They are built in the places where the nomadic raids are most frequent, along the river valleys and mountain passes that the horsemen use to penetrate into settled territory. These early walls are not impressive by later standards. They are built of rammed earth, hangtu in Chinese, a technique that involves pounding thin layers of soil between wooden frames until the soil is as hard as rock. The technique is ancient. It has been used in China for building foundations and city walls for thousands of years. The result is surprisingly durable. Rammed earth can last for centuries if it is protected from water. Many sections of these early walls survive to this day. Low brown ridges in the landscape, eroded and crumbling, but still recognizable, still tracing the line that the builders chose more than 2,000 years ago. But these early walls are fragments, isolated stretches. They protect individual states, not a unified frontier. They are built by rival kingdoms, each looking after its own territory, each ignoring the broader problem. The nomads simply go around them. They find the gaps. They probe the weak points. They adapt. The walls slow them down. They do not stop them. But they change the equation. A wall, even a simple wall of packed earth, changes the nature of a raid. Without a wall, the horsemen ride south in a column. They fan out across the farmland. They burn and loot and are gone before the nearest garrison can respond. With a wall, the horsemen must stop. They must dismount. They must find a way over or through. And while they are stopped, while they are dismounted and vulnerable, the smoke signals rise from the nearest watchtower. And the garrisons begin to mobilize. The wall does not need to be impregnable. It needs to be inconvenient. It needs to cost the attacker time. And in warfare, time is everything. The Warring States period, from roughly 475 to 221 before Christ, is one of the most violent and creative eras in Chinese history. 7 great states compete for dominance. They develop new weapons, new tactics, new forms of government, new philosophies. Confucius and his followers argue for harmony and order and the proper relationships between ruler and subject. The legalists argue for strict laws and harsh punishments. The Taoists argue for retreat from the world entirely. The Mohists argue against offensive warfare and develop techniques of defensive siege engineering. It is an age of genius and an age of slaughter. The battles are enormous. Armies of hundreds of thousands clash on open plains. The state of Qin alone, according to the historical records, kills more than 1 million enemy soldiers in the century before unification. The number is almost certainly exaggerated, but the scale of the violence is real. This is total war, war for survival, war that will determine which state lives and which is erased from the map. In this environment, walls are essential, not just on the northern frontier against the nomads, but between the states themselves. The landscape of warring states China is crisscrossed with walls, defensive walls, boundary walls, strategic walls built to block invasion routes and protect supply lines. Wall building is one of the basic skills of Chinese statecraft, practiced and refined over centuries. By the time Qin Shi Huang unifies the country, China already has thousands of miles of walls. The idea of a continuous northern wall is not new. What is new is the will and the power to make it real. Everything changes with one man. His name, or rather, his title, is Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of Qin, and he is one of the most extraordinary, most terrifying, most consequential figures in the entire history of the world. He is born in 259 before Christ into the royal family of the state of Qin, the westernmost of the warring states. Qin is a harsh kingdom, militaristic, disciplined, efficient. It sits on the edge of the steppe, hardened by centuries of border warfare, and it has developed a political and military system of ruthless effectiveness. The young king comes to power at 13. He is ambitious beyond measure, intelligent, paranoid, driven by a vision that no Chinese ruler before him has dared to imagine. He does not want to be king of Qin, he wants to be king of everything. Over the next 25 years, he conquers them all. One by one, the other warring states fall. Han in 230 before Christ, Zhao in 228, Yan in 226, Wei in 225, Chu in 223, Kai in 221. By the time the last state surrenders, the young king of Qin has done something that no one in Chinese history has ever done before. He has unified China. He declares himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. The title itself is new. No one in Chinese history has used the word Huang, emperor, in this way before. It is a word with divine connotations. It suggests not merely a king, but something more, something cosmic, the ruler of all under heaven. And he means it. He abolishes the feudal system. He standardizes the currency. He standardizes the weights and measures. He standardizes the width of cart axles so that every cart in the empire runs in the same ruts on the same roads. He standardizes the writing system, replacing the dozens of regional scripts with a single uniform script that can be read from one end of the empire to the other. He burns books. He buries scholars alive. He builds roads and canals and palaces. He begins construction of the enormous tomb that will house him in death, the tomb that will be guarded by an army of 8,000 terracotta soldiers, each one unique, each one facing outward, defending the dead emperor for eternity. And he looks north. The steppe is still there, vast and open and full of horsemen who do not recognize his authority, who do not use his standardized script or his standardized currency or his standardized axle widths, who do not bow to any emperor, who live by the rhythm of the grass and the horse and the bow. Qin Shi Huang has unified everything within his reach, but beyond the mountains, beyond the frontier, the steppe remains unconquered, unconquerable, an open wound on the edge of his perfect empire. The northern frontier is now his problem. It is no longer a patchwork of borders between rival states. It is one border, one frontier, stretching thousands of miles from the mountains of the northeast to the deserts of the northwest, and beyond it, the same enemy that has plagued the northern states for centuries, the Xiongnu, a confederation of nomadic tribes, fierce and mobile and utterly unimpressed by the new emperor's claims to universal sovereignty. Qin Shi Huang's solution is characteristically ambitious. He will connect the walls. The fragments already exist. The northern states of Yan and Zhao and Qin itself have all built walls along their portions of the frontier. But these walls are separate, disconnected, built by different states at different times to different standards. They do not form a continuous barrier. There are gaps, there are overlaps, there are sections that face the wrong direction, built to defend against other Chinese states that no longer exist. The first emperor orders his general, Meng Tian, to take 300,000 men north. Their mission is to drive the Xiongnu back from the frontier and then to build a wall, not a collection of walls. A wall, one continuous barrier stretching from the mountains to the desert, connecting the existing fragments and filling the gaps between them. It is an order of staggering ambition. The distance involved is enormous. The terrain is brutal: mountains, deserts, river gorges, steep hillsides where the soil is thin and the rock is hard, and the workforce, 300,000 men, must be fed and supplied and sheltered in some of the most inhospitable territory on earth. But the order is given, and in the Qin Empire, orders are obeyed. The logistics alone are staggering. 300,000 men must eat, they must drink, they must be clothed and sheltered and equipped with tools. Each worker needs roughly 2 pounds of grain per day. That is 300 tons of grain every day, 600,000 pounds. It must be transporting to the frontier from farms hundreds of miles to the south by ox cart, along roads that are barely roads at all, through mountains and across rivers and over terrain that is hostile to wheeled vehicles. The supply chain stretches for hundreds of miles. For every man who works on the wall, it is estimated that 3 more are needed to support him: farmers to grow the grain, carters to transport it, blacksmiths to forge the tools, weavers to make the cloth, potters to fire the vessels. The entire economy of northern China is redirected toward a single purpose: building the walls. General Meng Tian is a remarkable figure, a hereditary military officer. His family has served the Qin state for 3 generations. He is experienced, disciplined, methodical, and he is given a task that would break most men. He arrives at the frontier with an army larger than the population of most cities. The work ahead of him is not merely military. It is organizational, it is architectural, it is an exercise in logistics on a scale that the ancient world has rarely attempted. He begins by driving the Xiongnu north. The nomads retreat before his enormous army, unwilling to engage such a force in open battle. Meng Tian pushes the frontier forward, reclaiming territory that the nomads have occupied for decades. He establishes garrisons. He settles colonists in the newly secured lands. And then the wall building begins. The labor is colossal: 300,000 soldiers, hundreds of thousands more conscripted peasants and convicts. They work in the harshest conditions imaginable. In the mountains, they cut stone from the living rock and haul it into place by hand. In the deserts, they pound earth between wooden frames, layer after layer, until the wall rises from the sand. In the river valleys, they build foundations on bedrock and raise walls of stone and rubble that can withstand the spring floods. The wall follows the geography. It does not run in a straight line. It follows the ridgelines, the mountain crests, the edges of cliffs. It takes the high ground wherever possible, because a wall on a hilltop is worth 10 walls on a plain. From the high ground, the defenders can see the enemy approaching. They can signal to the next watchtower. They can roll stones down on anyone who tries to climb the slope. The watchtowers are spaced at regular intervals, close enough that a signal from one can be seen from the next, close enough that a patrol can walk between them in a reasonable time. Each tower serves as a garrison, a signal station, a supply depot, and a refuge. If the wall is breached, the defenders can retreat to the nearest tower and hold out until reinforcements arrive. The construction of the wall across the mountains is a feat of engineering that is difficult to appreciate until you see the terrain for yourself. These are not gentle hills. These are steep, jagged mountains with slopes of 45 degrees or more. The wall climbs them. It climbs ridges where a person without the wall would need ropes and handholds. It crosses ravines on arched bridges of stone. It follows the crests of knife-edge ridges where the drop on either side is hundreds of feet. How do you build a wall on a knife-edge ridge? How do you haul stone blocks up a 45-degree slope without wheeled vehicles, without cranes, without any mechanical advantage beyond the lever and the rope and the strength of human arms? The answer is the same as it has been for 2,000 years. One block at a time, one basket of earth at a time, one step at a time up the mountain, with the weight on your back and the sun in your eyes and the knowledge that tomorrow you will climb the same slope again. The system is simple, elegant, and brutally effective, not because it is impossible to cross. Any wall can be crossed given enough time and determination, but because it imposes a cost. An army that must stop and breach a wall loses its momentum, its surprise, its speed. And speed is everything for the nomads. Without speed, they are vulnerable. But the cost of building the wall is measured in more than stone and earth. It is measured in human lives. The conscript workers are treated with a cruelty that is difficult to comprehend from this distance. They are marched to the frontier in chains. They are fed poorly. They are worked from dawn to darkness. They sleep in the open, exposed to the freezing winds that blow down from the steppe in winter and the merciless sun that beats down in summer. Many of them die. The historical sources disagree on the numbers, but all agree that the numbers are enormous. Hundreds of thousands, perhaps more. They die of exhaustion, of starvation, of disease, of cold, of accidents on the precipitous mountain slopes where a single misplaced step means a fall of hundreds of feet. They die of despair. The Chinese have a saying, "For every stone in the Great Wall, a human life was spent." This is not literally true, but the spirit of it is not far wrong. The Great Wall is sometimes called the longest cemetery on earth. The bodies of the dead, the workers who fell, were often built into the wall itself. Their bones lie within the rammed earth and the rubble fill, anonymous and uncounted, part of the structure they gave their lives to build. This is the dark truth that lies beneath the grandeur. The Great Wall is a monument to human achievement. It is also a monument to human suffering. The two things are inseparable. You cannot admire the wall without also mourning the people who built it. The farmers torn from their fields, the fathers taken from their families, the young men who marched north and never came home. The wall remembers them, even if no one else does. There is a rhythm to the work. It is the rhythm of the rammed earth technique itself, the hangtu method. First, the wooden frames are erected, two parallel boards, held apart by ropes and pegs, creating a narrow mold perhaps 2 feet wide and 3 feet high. Then the earth is carried in. Baskets of soil, scooped from the ground nearby, passed from hand to hand along lines of workers that stretch down the hillside like human chains. The earth is poured into the mold in thin layers. Each layer is no more than 6 inches deep, and then the pounding begins. The pounders are heavy wooden rammers, logs with flattened ends, wielded by teams of men who lift them high and bring them down onto the loose earth with a rhythmic thud that echoes across the mountains. Thud, 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 again and again. The earth compresses. The air is driven out. The soil particles lock together. What was loose and crumbly becomes dense and hard and strong. In some sections, the builders add layers of reeds or tamarisk branches between the layers of earth. These natural fibers act as reinforcement, binding the layers together, the same principle that modern builders use when they put steel rebar in concrete. In the desert sections, where soil is scarce, the builders use gravel and sand and whatever they can find. Some sections of wall are built almost entirely of sand and dead desert plants, layered and pounded into a mass that is surprisingly durable. When one section of the mold is filled and compacted, the frames are moved upward. Another layer is begun. The wall rises, layer by layer, course by course, like a geological formation created at impossible speed. What nature takes millennia to build, these men build in weeks. The sound of the pounding carries for miles across the empty landscape. It is the sound of the Great Wall being born. It echoes off the mountains and fades into the steppe. The nomads can hear it from their camps on the far side of the frontier. They can hear the steady rhythmic percussion of the wall rising against them. Thud, thud, thud. There is a story that the Chinese have told for 2,000 years. A folk tale, a legend. It is probably not true in any literal sense, but it contains a truth that is deeper than history. Her name is Meng, Jiangnu. She is a young woman, married only days when her husband is conscripted and sent north to work on the wall. She waits for him. Days become weeks, weeks become months. No word comes, no message, no letter. The silence stretches on and on. Finally, she can bear it no longer. She sets out on foot, alone. She walks north across the fields and the rivers and the mountains, carrying winter clothes that she has sewn for her husband, because the cold on the wall is terrible and she knows he will need them. When she arrives, after weeks of walking, she discovers that her husband is dead. He has died of exhaustion. His body has been built into the wall. Meng Jiangnu weeps. She weeps with such grief, such terrible, inconsolable sorrow, that the wall itself is moved. The stone cracks, the earth shifts. A section of the Great Wall collapses, revealing the bones of her husband within. In some versions of the story, the emperor himself hears of her grief and is angry. He summons Meng Jiangnu to his court. He is struck by her beauty. He offers to make her his concubine. She agrees on 3 conditions. First, the emperor must give her husband a proper burial. Second, the emperor and his court must mourn her husband for 49 days. Third, the emperor must build a bridge across the sea so that she can visit her husband's grave. The emperor agrees to all 3 conditions, and when the mourning is complete and the bridge is built, Meng Jiangnu walks to the end of the bridge, looks back at the emperor, curses him for his cruelty, and throws herself into the sea. In all versions, she weeps. In all versions, the wall is complicit in the tragedy. It is a story about what the wall costs, not in money, not in stone, in human love, in human loss, in the terrible gap that opens in a family when someone is taken away and does not return. The Chinese have been telling this story for more than 2,000 years. They tell it still. And every time someone stands on the Great Wall and looks out across the mountains and feels the wind and sees the stones stretching away in both directions, the story of Meng Jiangnu whispers beneath their feet. Qin Shi Huang dies in 210 before Christ. He is 49 years old. He dies on a journey, seeking the elixir of immortality that he has spent years pursuing. The irony is inescapable. The man who built a wall against death, who buried himself with an army of terracotta soldiers to guard him in the afterlife, who ordered the construction of the greatest fortification in human history, could not keep death out. His empire barely outlives him. The Qin Dynasty, so powerful and so terrifying, collapses within 4 years of his death. The second emperor is weak. The bureaucracy fractures. Revolts break out across the country. The empire that Qin Shi Huang built with such ferocious efficiency comes apart like a house built on sand. General Meng Tian, the builder of the wall, is forced to commit suicide. The wall he built is abandoned in some places, occupied in others. The new dynasty, the Han, will look at it and decide what to do. The Han Dynasty rises from the ashes of the Qin. It is founded by Liu Bang, a man of humble origins, a former village headman who becomes emperor through a combination of military skill, political cunning, and extraordinary luck. The Han Dynasty will rule China for more than 400 years. It is one of the great dynasties of Chinese history, so influential that the Chinese still call themselves Han Chinese, and the Chinese writing system is still called Han characters. The Han Emperor inherits the wall, and the problem the wall was built to solve, because the Xiongnu are still there, still raiding, still appearing on the frontier with thousands of horsemen, fast and disciplined and utterly unafraid. The early Han emperors try diplomacy. They send princesses north to marry Xiongnu chieftains. They send silk and grain and wine. They try to buy peace. It works for a time, but the raids continue. The frontier remains unstable. The nomads remain dangerous. In 141 before Christ, Emperor Wu comes to the throne. He is ambitious, aggressive, impatient with diplomacy. He decides to take the offensive. He sends his greatest general, Xiongnu, north with a massive army. The campaigns are successful. The Xiongnu are driven deep into the steppe. The frontier is pushed further north than ever before. And Emperor Wu extends the wall. The Han approach to the wall is different from the Qin. The Qin wall was built in a single ferocious burst of construction, powered by conscript labor and imperial terror. The Han wall grows more slowly, more deliberately. It is built by soldiers who are also settlers, garrison troops who farm the land around their posts, growing their own food, raising their own families, gradually transforming the frontier from a line of defense into a zone of habitation. The Han also innovate. They develop a system of fire beacons that is more sophisticated than anything the Qin used. They create standard codes for different types of signal. They establish regular patrol schedules. They develop a postal system that runs along the wall, carrying messages and dispatches from one end of the frontier to the other. The wall becomes not just a barrier, but an administrative structure, a spine of organization running across the northern edge of the empire. The Han wall pushes westward, far westward, through the Hexi corridor, the narrow strip of land between the Tibetan plateau and the Mongolian steppe that connects central China with Central Asia. The wall extends all the way to Dunhuang and beyond it to the fortress of Yuan, the Jade Gate Pass, at the edge of the Taklamakan Desert. This is not just a defensive wall, it is a statement of intent. The Han Dynasty is not content to merely protect its existing territory. It is expanding, reaching westward toward the great trading routes that connect China with Persia and Rome and the Mediterranean world. The Silk Road. The Silk Road is not really a road. Like the Great Wall, it is a system, a network of routes, caravan paths, mountain passes, oases that thread their way across the deserts and mountains of Central Asia, connecting the markets of China with the markets of the West. Silk travels west, Chinese silk is the most prized fabric in the ancient world. Roman senators wear it. Egyptian queens sleep on it. Persian kings drape their thrones with it. The Chinese guard the secret of silk production with fierce jealousy. For centuries, no one outside China knows that silk comes from the cocoons of caterpillars. It might as well be magic. And from the west, goods flow eastward. Horses, glass, precious stones, frankincense and myrrh, gold and silver, new crops, new ideas, new religions. Buddhism travels the Silk Road from India to China. Christianity reaches the edges of the Chinese world. Islam will follow centuries later. The Han Wall protects the Silk Road. It guards the narrow corridor through which the caravans must pass. The watchtowers serve as customs posts, as relay stations, as shelters for travelers caught in sandstorms. The soldiers who garrison the wall check the documents of passing merchants, collect taxes, and keep the road safe from bandits. Documents have been found at some of these outposts, preserved by the dry desert air for 2,000 years. Bamboo strips and wooden tablets, covered in neat Chinese characters, recording the mundane business of frontier life. Requisitions for grain, reports on troop movements, letters home from lonely soldiers. One tablet records a complaint from a garrison commander that his men have not been paid in 3 months. Another records the arrest of a merchant caught trying to smuggle silk past the checkpoint without paying the tax. These documents are more vivid than any history book. They show us the wall not as a monument, but as a workplace. A place where real people lived and served and grumbled and wrote letters to their families and wondered when they would be allowed to go home. One document, found at the garrison post of Xiongnu near Dunhuang, is a letter from a soldier to his wife. He asks about the children. He asks about the crops. He mentions that his boots are wearing through and he needs new ones sent. He says that the wind has been blowing for 10 days without stopping and the sand gets into everything. He says he misses her cooking. It is a letter that could have been written yesterday. It is a letter that reminds us that the wall was not built by abstractions like the Han Dynasty or the Chinese state. It was built and guarded by individual men, with families and fears and sore feet and a longing for home. Another set of documents records the daily routine of a border garrison. Wake before dawn, morning roll call, inspect weapons and equipment, patrol the wall to the next watchtower and back, noon meal, afternoon duty, which might be maintenance work on the wall, or signal practice, or archery training, evening meal, night watch in rotation, sleep when you can. It is a monotonous life, the same routine day after day, the same view from the watchtower, the same stretch of wall to patrol, the same faces in the garrison. The enemy rarely appears. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass, nothing happens, and then, on a day that begins like any other, a column of dust appears on the northern horizon, and everything changes. The Han Dynasty falls in 220 after Christ. China fractures. For the next 4 centuries, the country is divided. Multiple kingdoms rise and fall. Dynasties come and go. The wall is neglected in some periods, rebuilt in others, as the balance of power shifts between the settled south and the nomadic north. This is a period of immense upheaval. Nomadic peoples cross the frontier and establish their own kingdoms in northern China. The Xianbei, the Jai, the Dai, the Qiang. For a time, the division between Chinese and Nomad becomes blurred. Northern China is ruled by men of steppe origin who adopt Chinese customs and Chinese governance while retaining their own martial traditions. The walls continue to be built. The Northern Wei dynasty, founded by the Xiongnu, builds walls along its northern frontier. The Northern Qin Dynasty builds more. These walls are not built by ethnically Chinese people against clearly defined foreign enemies. They are built by hybrid states, part Chinese and part steppe, against newer waves of nomads pressing in from the north. The pattern repeats. Each dynasty, regardless of its ethnic origin, eventually settles, builds cities, farms the land, becomes wealthy, becomes comfortable, and then looks north at the newer, hungrier, more mobile peoples on the steppe and builds a wall. It is a cycle that will repeat for more than 1,000 years. It is one of the deep rhythms of Chinese history, as regular as the flooding of the Nile in Egypt, as predictable as the turning of the seasons. Dynasty rises, dynasty prospers, dynasty fears, dynasty builds, dynasty declines, dynasty falls, new dynasty rises, and the wall, the eternal wall, is always there, waiting to be rebuilt. The wall is not a single act of construction. It is a habit, a reflex, an instinct bred into the Chinese political consciousness over 2 millennia. When trouble comes from the north, build a wall. When the steppe stirs, build a wall. When the empire feels vulnerable, build a wall. It is the first response, the default response, the response that no dynasty in 2,000 years has been able to resist. The period between the fall of the Han and the reunification of China under the Sui is known as the Six Dynasties period, or sometimes the Age of Division. It lasts nearly 4 centuries, 4 centuries of civil war, of fragmentation, of kingdoms rising and falling like waves on a shore. During this period, the idea of China itself is tested. Can China exist as a divided country? Can the northern half, ruled by peoples of steppe origin, and the southern half, ruled by Chinese dynasties, coexist? The answer, ultimately, is no. The pull of unity is too strong. The memory of the Han Dynasty, of a single great empire stretching from the sea to the desert, is too powerful. Division is temporary. Unity is the natural state. And when unity comes, the wall will be rebuilt. China is reunified by the Sui dynasty in 589, and then again, more durably, by the Tang dynasty in 618. The Tang is one of the great cosmopolitan empires of world history. Its capital, Chang'an, is the largest city on earth. Merchants from Persia and Arabia and India and Central Asia walk its streets. Its poetry is the finest in the Chinese language. Its ceramics are coveted from Japan to Baghdad. The Sui dynasty, which briefly reunifies China before the Tang, is a great wall builder. Emperor Yang of the Sui mobilizes more than 1 million workers in a series of massive construction campaigns between 607 and 608. The walls are built in the northern frontier regions, using the familiar rammed earth technique. The scale is enormous. The human cost is terrible. The Sui dynasty, like the Qin before it, achieves great things at a price that the people ultimately refuse to pay. The dynasty collapses after less than 40 years. Its walls remain. The Tang dynasty does not rely heavily on walls. It is too powerful, too confident. Its armies push the frontier far to the north and west, deep into Central Asia. The Tang controls the Silk Road by military force, by diplomacy, by the sheer prestige of its civilization. The nomadic peoples of the steppe are allies, vassals, trading partners. The wall still exists, but it is less important. The frontier is held by power, not by stone. But the Tang declines, As all dynasties decline, its armies weaken, its frontiers contract. Internal rebellions tear the empire apart. The Lushan rebellion of 755 nearly destroys the dynasty. The Tang struggles on for another century and a half, but its great days are behind it. The frontier begins to crumble. And then, from the steppe, come the peoples who will reshape the world. The Khitan, the Jurchen, the Tangut, new confederations of nomadic and semi-nomadic peoples who press against the northern frontier of the weakening Chinese states. The Song Dynasty, which succeeds the Tang after a period of division, never controls the north. It is pushed southward. It builds its capital at Hangzhou, far from the frontier, and looks north with anxiety and longing at the lost territories. The northern frontier is now held by non-Chinese dynasties. The Liao, ruled by the Khitan, the Jin, ruled by the Jurchen. These are not barbarian invaders in any simple sense. They are sophisticated states with their own written languages, their own administrative systems, their own cultures that blend steppe traditions with Chinese governance. The walls continue to exist, but they are no longer the primary defense. The balance of power between north and south, between the steppe and the settled land, is shifting in ways that walls alone cannot address. And then, in the early 13th century, something happens that changes everything. Something that will reshape not just China, not just Asia, but the entire world. A boy is born on the Mongolian steppe. He is born with a blood clot clenched in his fist. The shamans say this is a sign of destiny, a sign that this child will be a conqueror. They are right. His name is Temujin. He is born around 1162 on the banks of the Onon River in the Mongolian steppe. His father is poisoned when Temujin is a child. His family is abandoned by their clan. He grows up in poverty and danger, hunted and enslaved and nearly killed. But he survives, and more than survives, he rises. By 1206, through a combination of military genius, political skill, personal charisma, and a capacity for both devastating mercy and extreme violence that keeps his enemies perpetually uncertain of what to expect, Temujin has united the fractious tribes of Mongolia into a single confederation. For the first time in history, the steppe speaks with one voice. He takes a new name, Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. And then he turns south. The walls of northern China, built and rebuilt over centuries, present Genghis Khan with a problem, but not an insurmountable one. The Mongol army is the most mobile military force the world has ever seen. Each warrior rides with a string of spare horses. They can cover 100 miles in a day. They carry their food with them, dried meat and fermented mare's milk. They can fight in the saddle with bow and lance and sword. They are the perfect weapon against fixed defenses. Because a wall is only as strong as its defenders, and the defenders of the northern walls are divided. The Qin Dynasty, the Jurchen state that controls northern China, has built and maintained extensive walls, but the garrisons are under strength. The commanders are corrupt. The soldiers are demoralized, and the wall has gaps. Every wall has gaps. The Mongol army is like nothing the world has seen before. It moves with a speed and coordination that seems impossible for a force of its size. The warriors communicate across vast distances using a system of flags and whistling arrows. They practice coordinated maneuvers on the open steppe, thousands of horsemen wheeling and turning in perfect unison, like a flock of starlings. They are trained from childhood. A Mongol boy learns to ride before he can walk. He learns to shoot from the saddle before he can read. By the time he is old enough to fight, he is one of the most formidable warriors on earth. Genghis Khan does not try to breach the wall by frontal assault. He is too clever for that. He probes, he feints, he sends columns around the ends of the wall through the passes that the defenders cannot cover. He bribes gate commanders to open their gates. He captures Chinese engineers and puts them to work building siege weapons. He adapts. In 1211, the Mongol army crosses the frontier. The walls delay them. In some places, the walls hold for weeks, for months, but the Mongols are patient. They can wait. They can go around. They can starve a garrison into submission. And one by one, the fortresses fall, the gates open, the wall is breached. By 1215, Beijing has fallen. The Qin Dynasty is shattered. Within a generation, all of China will be under Mongol rule. The walls have failed. Or have they? The question is more subtle than it appears. The walls delayed the Mongols for years. The Qin Dynasty, despite its corruption and its military weakness, held out for nearly 2 decades after the first Mongol invasion. Without the walls, the conquest might have taken months instead of years. The walls bought time. They channeled the Mongol advance through predictable routes. They forced the Mongols to develop siege techniques and recruit Chinese engineers. The walls did not stop the Mongols, but nothing stopped the Mongols. The Mongols conquered everything from China to Hungary. They sacked Baghdad and burned the Great Library. They destroyed the Khwarezmian Empire in Central Asia. They defeated the armies of Poland and Hungary in a single campaign. The fact that the Great Wall could not stop the greatest military force in human history is perhaps not the damning verdict that it first appears. The Mongol dynasty in China is called the Yuan. It is founded by Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis, who completes the conquest of China in 1279. For the first time in history, all of China is ruled by nomads, by the very people the walls were built to keep out. The Yuan dynasty does not build walls. Why would it? The Mongol Empire stretches from Korea to Hungary. There is no frontier to defend. The steppe and the farmland are part of the same empire. The horsemen and the farmers are subjects of the same ruler. The existing walls fall into disrepair. They crumble. They are buried under blown sand and creeping vegetation. Local farmers quarry them for building stone. The watchtowers collapse. The garrisons are disbanded. For nearly a century, the Great Wall sleeps. But not forever. The Yuan dynasty falls in 1368. It is overthrown by a rebellion led by Zhu Yuanzhang, a man of extraordinary origins. He is born into a peasant family so poor that his parents cannot afford to bury their dead children. He enters a Buddhist monastery as a boy, not out of religious devotion, but because it is the only way to get enough food to survive. He becomes a beggar, a wanderer, a rebel, and finally, an emperor. Zhu Yuanzhang founds the Ming Dynasty. He drives the Mongols back to the steppe. He reclaims the farmland. He rebuilds the cities. He restores Chinese rule to a country that has been governed by foreigners for nearly a century. And he looks north. The Mongols are gone, but they are not destroyed. They are still out there on the steppe, still mounted, still dangerous. They have been pushed back, but they could return. They have done it before. The fear is deep. It is a fear that has been bred into the Chinese consciousness over 2,000 years of frontier warfare. The steppe is vast. The horsemen are fast. The frontier is long, and the memory of Mongol conquest is fresh. The Chinese have lived under foreign rule for nearly a century. They have seen their cities burned, their scholars humiliated, their traditions threatened. They will not let it happen again. Build a wall, build it higher, build it stronger, build it of stone and brick instead of earth. Build it with cannons on the towers and fire in the beacons, and a garrison of men who will fight and die before they let a single horseman through. The Ming obsession with the wall is the obsession of a people who remember what it is like to be conquered. It is defensive. It is anxious. It is the architectural expression of a national trauma, and it produces the greatest fortification the world has ever seen. The Ming Dynasty will build the greatest version of the Great Wall that the world has ever seen. This is the wall you know, the wall in the photographs, the wall that climbs across the mountains north of Beijing in great swooping curves, with its watchtowers and its crenellations and its broad walkway on top where 5 horsemen could ride abreast. When people say the Great Wall of China, they usually mean the Ming Wall. The earlier walls were built of rammed earth. The Ming Wall is built of stone and brick. This is a revolution in construction. Brick is uniform, standardized. Each brick is the same size and weight. It can be carried by a single man. It can be laid quickly. It can be repaired easily. A section of rammed earth wall that collapses in a rainstorm takes weeks to rebuild. A section of brick wall can be repaired in days. The Ming Wall is not built all at once. The dynasty lasts from 1368 to 1644, nearly 3 centuries, and the wall is built and rebuilt and extended and strengthened throughout this entire period. The earliest Ming walls are relatively simple, rammed earth with stone foundations. The later walls, especially those built in the late 15th and 16th centuries, are masterpieces of military engineering. The core of the wall is rubble, broken stone and earth and whatever is available locally. The 2 faces, the outer face towards the enemy and the inner face towards China, are built of carefully laid stone blocks or fired bricks set in mortar. The top is paved with brick, creating a broad flat walkway that serves as a road. Soldiers, supplies, horses, messages, all travel along the top of the wall. The dimensions vary depending on the terrain and the strategic importance of the section. In critical areas, near the capital, near the major passes, the wall can be 25 feet high and 20 feet wide at the base. The walkway on top is 15 feet wide, broad enough for 5 horsemen to ride abreast, or for a cart to pass. The outer face, the face towards the enemy, is topped with crenellations. A row of stone merlons with narrow gaps between them through which archers can shoot while remaining protected. The inner face, towards China, has a low parapet to prevent soldiers from falling. In some sections, the wall is so wide and so solidly built that it serves as a road. Troops and supplies move along the top of the wall, safe from ambush, elevated above the surrounding terrain with a commanding view in all directions. The wall is simultaneously a barrier, a road, a watchtower platform, and a signal line. It is a masterpiece of multifunctional military design. In less important areas, the wall may be lower and narrower. In some remote sections, it is little more than a stone wall a few feet high, sufficient to slow horsemen, but not to stop a determined assault. The Ming builders are pragmatic. They invest where the threat is greatest and economize where it is not. The wall near Beijing is a fortress. The wall in the remote mountains of Shanxi is a fence. Both serve their purpose. But everywhere, it is substantial. This is not a fence. This is a fortification. The watchtowers of the Ming Wall are among the most distinctive features of the entire structure. They rise above the wall at intervals of roughly 300 to 500 meters, depending on the terrain and the sightlines. Each tower is a self-contained fortress. It has multiple floors, storage rooms for food and water and weapons, arrow slits facing in all directions, a platform on the roof for signaling. The signal system is ingenious. During the day, the towers communicate with smoke. A fire is lit on the roof using a mixture of wolf dung and sulfur, which produces a thick column of gray smoke that can be seen for miles. At night, the towers use fire, torches, bonfires. The flames leap from tower to tower, a chain of light racing along the wall at the speed of sight. The code is standardized. One column of smoke means a small raiding party, fewer than 500 horsemen. 2 columns means a larger force. 3 columns means a major attack. 4 columns means an army. 5 columns, rarely lit, means a full-scale invasion. A message can travel the length of the wall in hours, from the frontier to the capital in a single day. This is remarkable for an age before electricity, before telegraph, before any technology faster than a horse. The wall is not just a barrier, it is a communications network, an information highway made of stone and fire and smoke. Life on the wall, for the soldiers who garrison it, is hard. The wall runs through some of the most remote and inhospitable terrain in China. In the east, it crosses the steep forested mountains of Hebei and Liaoning, where the winters are brutal and the supply lines are long. In the center, it follows the ridgelines north of Beijing, where the altitude brings fierce winds and sudden snowstorms even in late spring. In the west, it runs through the edge of the Gobi Desert, where the summers are scorching and water is scarce, and the nearest town may be 100 miles away. The garrison soldiers are not an elite force. Many are convicts, others are conscripts, others are hereditary military families, men whose fathers and grandfathers served on the wall before them and whose sons will serve after them. They are paid poorly, supplied irregularly, forgotten by the distant bureaucrats in Beijing who control the budget. They grow their own food when they can, small plots of land beside the wall, irrigated with water carried from streams in the valleys below. They hunt, they fish in the mountain streams, they trade with the nomads on the other side of the wall, a trade that is technically illegal but practically universal. The soldiers need horses. The nomads want grain and cloth and iron. A quiet commerce flows across the wall despite its purpose. The soldiers patrol. They walk the top of the wall in all weathers, watching the northern horizon for dust clouds that might signal an approaching force. They maintain the wall, repairing cracks and replacing fallen stones. They clean their weapons. They signal to the next tower at fixed intervals to confirm that all is well. They write reports that no one reads. And at night, they watch the sky. The great passes are the critical points, the places where major routes cross the wall, where valleys cut through the mountains, where an invading army might concentrate its force. 3 passes above all others define the Great Wall. The first, and perhaps the most famous, is Xiongnu, the pass between the mountains and the sea. It stands at the extreme eastern end of the Ming Wall, where the mountains of the Yanshan Range meet the coast of the Bohai Sea. The wall descends from the mountains, passes through the fortress of Xiongnu, and runs into the sea itself. There is a gate tower here that is famous throughout China. Above its gate, a calligraphy inscription reads, "First pass under heaven." It is an apt name. Xiongnu is the gateway between China and Manchuria. The narrow coastal plain that separates the mountains from the sea is only a few miles wide. Anyone coming from the northeast, from the vast forests and plains beyond, must pass through here or climb the mountains. For centuries, Jiayuguan holds them out. The second great pass is Jiangnu. It lies in a steep, narrow valley northwest of Beijing, on the main route between the capital and the Mongolian steppe. The valley is barely wide enough for a road. The mountains rise on either side like walls themselves. The pass is fortified with multiple walls, one behind the other, so that an army that breaches the first must immediately face the second. Jiayuguan has been fortified since at least the 5th century before Christ. It is one of the most fought-over places in Chinese history. The walls here have been breached and rebuilt, and breached again more times than anyone can count. The stone has been stained with the blood of defenders and attackers from a dozen different peoples across 2,000 years. And the third great pass is Jiayuguan, the pass of the Pleasant Valley. It stands at the extreme western end of the Ming Wall, where the mountains of the Khitan range approach the Gobi Desert. Beyond Jiayuguan, there is nothing, desert, emptiness. The road to Central Asia stretches into the shimmering heat haze and disappears. Jiayuguan deserves a moment of its own. It is one of the most atmospheric places on the Great Wall, a fortress of yellow-brown rammed earth and brick, standing alone at the edge of the desert. The mountains rise to the south, snow-capped and magnificent. The Gobi stretches to the north, flat and brown and endless, and between them, the fortress, the last outpost of China. There is a legend about Jiayuguan. When the fortress was being designed, the engineer in charge calculated the exact number of bricks that would be needed. His superiors were skeptical. They challenged him. If he was wrong by even a single brick, he would be executed. The fortress was built, and when the last brick was laid, there was one brick left over, just one. The engineer placed it on a ledge above the main gate, where it has remained ever since. It is still there today, a single brick sitting on a ledge, proof of one man's extraordinary precision. The story is probably apocryphal, but the brick is real. You can see it if you visit. Jiayuguan is the western end of the wall, the last point where China asserts itself against the vastness of Central Asia. Beyond the gate, travelers enter the desert. Merchants heading west along the Silk Road pass through this gate and look back, knowing that the next time they see it, if they see it again, they will be home. There is a tradition at Jiayuguan. Departing travelers throw a stone at the wall. If the stone bounces back, they will return safely. If it does not, they will never come home. The base of the wall at Jiayuguan is heaped with stones. Beyond Jiayuguan, the wall continues as a series of watchtowers and beacon towers stretching into the desert. These isolated outposts, built of rammed earth and sun-dried brick, stand alone in the vastness. Some a little more than crumbling mounds. Others still stand to their full height, rectangular towers of yellow-brown earth against the blue desert sky. These desert towers are among the loneliest human structures on Earth. The nearest water may be miles away. The nearest settlement, days of travel. The soldiers who garrison them lived in an isolation that is difficult to imagine. Their world was the tower, the wall, the horizon, the sand, the relentless desert wind that carved the earth and filled their eyes and their food and their bedding with fine, gritty dust. And yet they served, year after year. watching the desert for the dust clouds that might signal a caravan or an army or nothing at all, lighting their signal fires when required, maintaining their tower, writing their reports, living their small lives in the shadow of an empire that had mostly forgotten they existed. The Ming Wall does not prevent all incursions. No wall can. In 1449, a Mongol force captures the Emperor Zhengtong himself in a debacle known as the Tumu Crisis. The emperor has led his army north of the wall against the advice of his ministers and is ambushed and captured. It is the most humiliating military defeat in Ming history. In 1550, the Mongol leader Altan Khan leads a massive force around the western end of the wall, rides south across undefended territory, and appears at the gates of Beijing itself. The suburbs are burned. The population is terrorized. The imperial court descends into panic. Altan Khan does not attempt to breach the city walls, but the message is clear: the wall is not enough. These crises prompt further building. The great General Jiguang, one of the most celebrated military figures in Chinese history, is assigned to strengthen the wall north of Beijing in the 1560s and 1570s. He redesigns the watchtowers. He strengthens the fortifications. He improves the signal system. He trains his soldiers in new tactics. The wall that stands today in the mountains north of Beijing, the wall that tourists photograph. The wall that has become the universal symbol of China is largely Jiguang's creation. He is a fascinating man, a scholar as well as a soldier. He writes treatises on military strategy and the training of troops. He develops new weapons, including the bird gun, an early form of musket that gives his soldiers a decisive advantage in ranged combat. He reorganizes the garrison system, replacing the hereditary soldiers with trained professionals recruited from across the empire. He understands that the wall alone is not sufficient. The wall is only as good as the men who defend it, and the men must be trained and paid and fed and given a reason to fight. Under Jiguang's command, the wall north of Beijing becomes the most sophisticated fortification in the world. The towers are redesigned with firing platforms for cannons. The walls are thickened to withstand bombardment. The garrisons are trained to a standard that would have impressed a Roman legion. For a generation, the frontier holds. But nothing holds forever. Along the Ming Wall, a culture develops. The wall is not just a military structure. It is a community, a long, thin ribbon of human habitation stretching across the mountains and the deserts. The garrison soldiers bring their families. Villages grow up in the shadow of the watchtowers. Markets appear. Temples are built. Schools are established for the children of soldiers. There are wine shops and noodle stalls and craftsmen who make and repair the tools and weapons that the garrison needs. Soldiers themselves develop a distinctive culture. They are neither fully civilian nor fully military. They farm in peacetime and fight when needed. They develop local traditions, local cuisines, local dialects shaped by the mixing of men from different provinces who have been thrown together on the frontier. They celebrate festivals with their own variations. They tell stories about the wall, about its ghosts and its legends, and the strange things that happen in the watchtowers on long winter nights. There is a superstition among the wall soldiers that you should never whistle at night on the wall. Whistling attracts ghosts. The ghosts of the workers who died building it, the ghosts of the soldiers who died defending it, the ghosts of the nomads who died trying to cross it. The wall is full of ghosts. Every section has its stories. Every watchtower has its haunted room. Every stretch of wall has its particular hour when the wind sounds like crying. The soldiers learn to live with the ghosts. They pour a little wine on the stone before they drink. They burn incense in the watchtowers. They speak respectfully of the dead. The wall is a place of the living and the dead, and the living have learned that it is wise to keep the dead company. The Ming Dynasty falls in 1644, and the manner of its falling is one of the great ironies of Chinese history. The wall does not fail, not exactly. What fails is the dynasty itself. By the early 17th century, the Ming is in crisis. The treasury is empty. The bureaucracy is corrupt. Natural disasters, famines and floods and plagues sweep across the country. Peasant rebellions break out in the interior. The largest of these, led by Li Zicheng, captures Beijing in April 1644. The last Ming emperor hangs himself on a hill behind the Forbidden City. The wall still stands. The garrisons still hold their posts. The frontier is intact, but the country behind the wall is in chaos. And at Xiongnu, the pass between the mountains and the sea, the commander of the wall faces an impossible choice. His name is Wu Sangui. He is 32 years old. He is the most powerful military commander on the northern frontier. He has an army of tens of thousands of battle-hardened soldiers, and he is caught between two enemies. Behind him, the rebel army of Li Zicheng holds Beijing. Before him, beyond the wall, the Manchu army of the Qing waits. The Manchus are the descendants of the Jurchen, the people who ruled northern China as the Qin Dynasty 4 centuries earlier. They have been building their strength for decades. They have conquered Manchuria and Korea. They have been raiding across the wall, and now they see their opportunity. Wu Sangui makes his choice. He opens the gates. The Manchu army pours through Xiongnu. They sweep south. They defeat Li Zicheng's rebels. They capture Beijing. They establish the Qing Dynasty. China has new rulers, and the Great Wall, built to keep them out, has let them in. It is the last great act in the military history of the Great Wall. The gate opens, the horsemen ride through, and the wall's purpose, after 2,000 years, is ended. There is a terrible poetry in this moment. The wall, built over 20 centuries to keep the northern peoples out, is opened from the inside, not breached by force, not overwhelmed by numbers, opened by a Chinese commander who decides that the enemy outside the wall is preferable to the enemy within. The Great Wall is undone not by a foreign conqueror, but by the same force that has always been its greatest weakness: politics, human choice. The wall is stone. Stone does not make decisions. Stone does not choose sides. Stone holds until the men who guard it choose to let it fall. The Qing Dynasty does not need the wall. Like the Mongol Yuan before it, the Qing rules both sides of the frontier. The empire expands into Mongolia, into Tibet, into Xinjiang, into Central Asia. The steppe is not an enemy. It is part of the empire. The wall becomes simply a wall, a line of old stone in the mountains, a relic. The Qing emperors do not maintain it. There is no need. The Kangxi Emperor, one of the longest reigning monarchs in Chinese history, explicitly dismisses the wall as a relic. He points to the example of previous dynasties and argues that walls do not protect empires. Good governance does, strong armies do, the loyalty of the people does. Walls are expensive, they are difficult to maintain, and they do not work. He is not wrong, but he is emperor of a dynasty that rules both sides of the wall. He can afford to be dismissive. The garrisons are withdrawn, the watchtowers are abandoned, the signal fires go dark, the broad walkway on top of the wall, once busy with soldiers and horses and messengers, grows quiet. Weeds push up between the bricks. Trees take root in the cracks. Birds nest in the watchtowers. Local farmers quarry the wall for building material. The bricks are good, well-made, uniform, perfect for building houses and barns and walls around vegetating fields. Slowly, section by section, the wall is dismantled by the very people it was built to protect. This process continues for centuries, through the Qing Dynasty, through the fall of the Qing in 1912, through the Republic, through the warlord era, through the Japanese invasion, through the Civil War, through the early decades of the People's Republic. For 300 years, the Great Wall is treated not as a national treasure, but as a convenient quarry. By the time anyone thinks to preserve it, nearly a third of the Ming Wall has disappeared. The wall does not die dramatically, it dies slowly, quietly, the way most buildings die, not with a crash but with a gradual settling. A brick falls, no one replaces it. Rain gets into the gap. Frost expands the crack. More bricks fall, the walkway on top collapses, the rubble core spills out. Vegetation takes hold. Roots push into the mortar. Trees grow from the towers. The wall sinks, slowly, back into the mountain from which it was raised. In some places, the wall is reduced to a low mound in the landscape, a ridge of earth barely distinguishable from the natural terrain. Farmers plow over it, roads are built across it, houses are built on it. The wall becomes invisible, not destroyed exactly, but absorbed, reabsorbed by the landscape, as if the earth is taking back what was borrowed from it, stone by stone, brick by brick, handful of earth by handful of earth. The first Europeans to see the Great Wall are the Jesuit missionaries who arrive in China in the 16th and 17th centuries. They are astonished. Nothing in Europe compares. Matteo Rix, the great Italian Jesuit who reaches Beijing in 1601, writes about the wall with wonder. Other European travelers follow. They are astonished by the scale, by the ambition, by the sheer relentless length of it. Nothing in European experience prepares them for a structure that stretches across an entire continent. The longest structure in Europe, Hadrian's Wall in northern England, is 73 miles long. The Great Wall is thousands of miles. The comparison is not between a wall and a larger wall. It is between a wall and a geological feature. The wall appears on European maps, a thick line drawn across northern China, labeled in Latin as the Great Wall. It becomes one of the defining images of China in the Western imagination, a symbol of Chinese otherness, of Chinese ambition, of the vast, mysterious empire on the other side of the world that Europeans know almost nothing about. But the European fascination with the wall is nothing compared to what will happen when photography arrives. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Western photographers capture images of the wall that circulate around the world. The wall becomes an icon, a symbol not just of China, but of human ambition itself. And somewhere along the way, someone says that the Great Wall is the only man-made structure visible from space. This is one of the most persistent myths in modern culture. It has been repeated in textbooks, in encyclopedias, in television documentaries, in conversations at dinner parties. It has the feeling of truth. The wall is so long, so massive, surely it must be visible from orbit. But it is not true. The Great Wall is long, but it is narrow at its widest. It is perhaps 20 feet across. This is far too narrow to be seen by the human eye from orbital altitude. Astronauts have confirmed this repeatedly. From space, the wall is invisible. It blends into the landscape. It is the same color as the mountains and the earth around it. You cannot distinguish it from a natural ridge or a dry riverbed. This does not diminish the wall. The wall does not need to be visible from space to be magnificent. It is magnificent from the ground, from the watchtowers, from the ridgelines where it climbs and dips and climbs again. It is magnificent in the way it follows the landscape, hugging the contours of the mountains as if it grew there naturally, as if the mountains themselves decided to grow a spine. The Great Wall has inspired art for centuries. Chinese painters have depicted it in ink and watercolor, showing it winding through misty mountains like a dragon's tail. Poets have written about it, about the loneliness of the garrison soldier, about the wife who waits at home, about the moonlight falling on the stone. The Tang Dynasty, poet Wang Changeling wrote, "The bright moon of Qin, the passes of Han, the soldiers who marched 10,000 miles have not returned." It is a poem about the wall, about the distance, about the men who are sent to the frontier and never come home. It has been recited in Chinese schools for more than 1,000 years. Every Chinese child knows it. Every Chinese adult carries it somewhere in their memory. The wall is not just a structure. It is a poem, a painting, a melody played on a two-stringed erhu in the evening. It is woven into the culture so deeply that you cannot separate them. In modern times, the wall has become a film set, a backdrop for photographs, a destination for runners who compete in the Great Wall Marathon, one of the most grueling foot races on Earth, running up and down the steep stone steps of the Jinshanling section in the mountains north of Beijing. It has become a canvas for artists and a stage for musicians. It has appeared in films and television shows and video games and advertisements. But beneath all of this, beneath the tourism and the commerce and the spectacle, the wall remains what it has always been, a line of stone in the mountains, a line drawn by human hands across the face of the earth, a line that says, "This is where we stopped. This is where we stood. This is where we tried to hold." The Great Wall enters the modern Chinese consciousness as a symbol of national identity in the 20th century. Sun Yat-sen, the founder of the Chinese Republic, writes about the wall as a symbol of Chinese perseverance. Mao Zedong famously declares, "He who has not climbed the Great Wall is not a true man." The phrase is carved into the wall at Badaling, the section closest to Beijing, where it has been read by millions of visitors. The phrase is carved into the wall at Badaling, the section closest to Beijing, where it has been read by millions of visitors. It has become one of the most quoted sayings in modern Chinese culture. Diplomats say it, business leaders say it, tourists say it to each other as they climb the steep stone steps. It has been translated into dozens of languages. It appears on t-shirts and mugs and refrigerator magnets in every gift shop along the wall. Badaling is the most visited section of the Great Wall. It was the first section to be restored, beginning in the 1950s, and it is the section that most tourists see. It is well maintained, accessible. There are cable cars and gift shops and restaurants. On a busy day, which is most days, the wall at Badaling is packed with visitors, shoulder to shoulder, moving slowly along the walkway, posing for photographs, buying souvenirs. It is not, perhaps, the most atmospheric way to experience the wall, but it serves a purpose. It allows millions of people, Chinese and foreign alike, to touch the stone, to climb the stairs, to stand on the wall and look out at the mountains and imagine, however briefly, what it must have been like to stand here 500 years ago, watching the northern horizon for dust. But there is another way to experience the Great Wall, a quieter way, a way that brings you closer to the wall as it really is, not as a tourist attraction, but as an ancient structure slowly returning to the earth. The Chinese call it the Yichangcheng, the Wild Wall. These are the sections that have not been restored, that have not been maintained, that have been left to the weather and the forest and the slow, patient work of time. They are found all along the wall, in the mountains north and east of Beijing, in Hebei and Liaoning and Shanxi, wherever the wall passes through terrain too remote and too difficult for easy access. The Wild Wall is beautiful in a way that the restored sections are not. The bricks are weathered and cracked. Trees grow from the watchtowers, vines cover the walls. In places, the walkway has collapsed entirely, leaving only a scramble of rubble and loose stone over which you must climb carefully, testing each foothold, feeling the wall shift and settle beneath you. In places, the wall narrows to the width of a single brick. You walk along the top with the mountains dropping away on either side, green and forested and utterly silent except for the wind and the birds and the faint rustle of the forest canopy far below. There are no crowds here, no gift shops, no cable cars, just you and the wall and the mountains. The wild sections have names that hikers know. Jiangnu, where the wall climbs a knife-edge ridge so steep that you must use your hands as well as your feet. Simitai, where the watchtowers stand in various stages of collapse, from nearly intact to barely recognizable. Gubeku, where bullet holes from the Japanese invasion of the 1930s still pock the stone. The wild sections are where the hikers go, not the tour groups, not the day trippers from Beijing. The hikers, the ones who carry their own water and their own food and who are willing to scramble over collapsed sections and climb through watchtowers that lean at alarming angles and sleep on the wall itself, under the stars, in a sleeping bag rolled out on the ancient bricks. They come from all over the world, from Europe and America and Australia and Japan. They come because the Wild Wall offers something that no restored section can provide: authenticity, solitude, the feeling of discovery, the feeling that you are walking on something that has barely been touched since the last Garrison soldier walked this same stretch 500 years ago. At dawn on the Wild Wall, when the mist fills the valleys and the light turns the mountains gold, the wall seems to float above the clouds. It is one of the most beautiful sights on earth. The towers emerge from the mist like islands in a white sea. The wall stretches between them, a thin line of stone connecting one island to the next. Below, the forest is invisible. Above, the sky is clear and pale and enormous. You can walk for hours on the Wild Wall without seeing another person. The only sounds are the wind and the birds and the crunch of your boots on loose brick. You pass through watchtowers where swallows nest in the rafters. You climb stairs that are broken and uneven and covered in moss. You run your hand along walls that are 500 years old and feel the texture of the brick, rough and warm and real. These places feel different from Badaling. They feel real. They feel honest. They show the wall as it is, not as we wish it to be. They show the beauty of decay, the dignity of age, the way that even the most ambitious human construction, given enough time, returns to the landscape from which it came. The wall has also become a place of pilgrimage for a different kind of visitor. Historians, archaeologists, conservationists, people who come not to take photographs but to study, to measure, to document, to understand. They map the wall with GPS. They photograph it from drones. They analyze the composition of the mortar and the origin of the bricks. They search for inscriptions and masons' marks and the traces of the people who built it. Their work has revealed things that centuries of casual observation missed. The wall is not just a wall. It is a system of walls, roads, watchtowers, garrison forts, granaries, horse pastures, signal stations, administrative offices, and civilian settlements, all connected by the wall itself. It is a linear city, a narrow ribbon of habitation stretching across the landscape. Understanding it as merely a wall is like understanding a railway as merely a pair of steel rails. In 1987, the Great Wall is designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The designation covers the entire wall system, all dynasties, all sections, all 21,000 kilometers of it. It is one of the most significant heritage designations in the world. But designation alone does not protect the wall. The threats are many and growing. Erosion is the most relentless. The wall was built to withstand armies. It was not built to withstand centuries of rain and frost and wind. The rammed earth sections, the oldest parts, are dissolving, literally dissolving. Each rainstorm carries away another millimeter of earth. Each freeze-thaw cycle cracks another stone. Each windstorm scours another layer of mortar. Tourism presents its own challenges. The popular sections, Badiling and Xiongnu and Jinshanling, receive millions of visitors each year. The foot traffic wears down the bricks. Visitors carve their names into the stone. Vendors sell drinks and snacks that generate litter. The infrastructure required to support mass tourism, roads and car parks and cable cars and toilets, changes the landscape around the wall. Development is perhaps the greatest threat of all. Modern China is building at a pace that the world has never seen. Roads, railways, cities, factories, dams, in many places, the wall stands in the path of progress. Sections have been demolished to make way for new roads. Bricks have been stolen for construction. In one notorious case, a local government paved over a section of the wall with concrete to create a road. A comprehensive survey conducted between 2007 and 2012 measured the full extent of the wall system for the first time. Using GPS and satellite imagery, the surveyors documented walls from every dynasty, in every province, across every type of terrain. The total came to 21,196.18 kilometers, more than 13,000 miles. The survey also revealed the scale of the loss of the Ming Wall alone. Nearly a third has disappeared completely. Another third is in poor condition. Only about a third remains in recognizable form. The Chinese government has passed laws to protect the wall, penalties for damaging it, restrictions on development near it, funding for restoration. But the wall is more than 20,000 kilometers long. Monitoring it all is impossible. Protecting it all is impossible. The wall is too big to save entirely. Some of it will be preserved, some of it will be restored, and some of it, inevitably, will be lost. The night deepens. You are still on the wall. The stars have shifted overhead. The air has grown colder. The wind has dropped to the faintest whisper, barely enough to stir the dry grass that grows between the stones at your feet. The mountains stretch away on either side, dark ridges against the darker sky. Somewhere to the north, the steppe begins. That vast open grassland that drew the nomads southward for 2,000 years. It is quiet now. The horsemen are gone. The herds are gone. The felt tents and the campfires and the sound of hooves on frozen ground, all gone. The steppe is still there, but the world it belonged to has passed. And the wall stands between. Think about that for a moment. 2,000 years of human effort, millions of workers, millions of bricks, millions of stones, millions of baskets of earth carried up mountainsides and packed into forms and pounded until they were hard as rock. All of it, every stone and every brick and every handful of earth, placed here by human hands, placed here because someone, some emperor, some general, some bureaucrat in a distant capital, decided that this line on the map was worth defending. Was it worth it? The question has no easy answer. The wall did not prevent all invasions. The Mongols crossed it. The Manchus crossed it. Every enemy who was determined enough and patient enough and clever enough eventually found a way through or around. But the wall was never meant to be impenetrable. No wall is. A wall is a statement, a line drawn on the earth. It says this far and no further. It says we are here, we have built this, we will defend it. A wall does not need to be unbreachable to serve its purpose. It needs only to impose a cost, to slow the enemy, to give the defenders time to say, loudly and in stone, we are not defenseless, we are not easy prey, cross this line and there will be consequences. Every civilization has its walls. The Romans had Hadrian's Wall. The Persians had the Great Wall of Gorgon. The Danes had the Danewerk. The Americans have their fences. The impulse is universal. When a settled people feels threatened by a mobile enemy, they build a wall. It is one of the oldest instincts in human architecture, older than temples, older than palaces, older even than cities. The first walls were built around the earliest permanent settlements, Jericho, Catalhoyuk. 8,000 years before Christ, walls came before almost everything else. But no civilization has ever built walls on this scale. No civilization has ever poured so much labor and so much stone and so much human life into the drawing of a single line across the earth. The Great Wall of China is not just a wall. It is the ultimate expression of an idea that is as old as civilization itself. And perhaps, more than anything, the wall is a statement about what the people who built it believed was worth protecting: their farms, their families, their civilization, their way of life. The settled world of fields and cities and temples and books and markets and music and poetry and law, all of it defended by a line of stone across the mountains. There is something about standing on the wall at night that makes you feel very small and very brief. The wall has been here for 2,000 years. You have been here for minutes. The wall will be here in some form for 2,000 more. You will not. But this is not a sad thought. Not tonight. Tonight, it is a comforting thought to know that the things we build can outlast us, that the work of our hands can endure long after our hands have turned to dust, that a wall built by people whose names we have forgotten, whose faces we cannot imagine, whose lives were harder and shorter and more uncertain than ours, that their wall still stands, still holds, still traces its ancient line across the mountains. It is a kind of immortality, not for the individual, but for the species. The wall says, we were here, we built this, we mattered. There is one more thing to notice before you sleep. The wall does not fight the landscape, it follows it. It climbs when the mountains climb. It dips when the valleys dip. It curves when the ridgeline curves. It is not imposed on the landscape. It is part of it. After 2,000 years, the wall has become as natural a feature of these mountains as the rock itself. In the early morning, when the mist rises from the valleys, the wall emerges from the white like the spine of a sleeping dragon. The Chinese have always seen it this way. a dragon, a creature of myth and power, lying across the mountains, its scales of brick and stone catching the first light of day. Tonight, the dragon sleeps, the watchtowers are dark, the signal fires have been cold for 300 years, the garrisons are empty, the soldiers are gone, their names forgotten, their bones returned to the earth they defended. The nomads are gone, the horses are gone, the battles are over. Only the wall remains. Let your eyes close now. Let the image settle behind your eyelids. A wall across the mountains, a line of pale stone in the darkness, watchtowers rising at intervals, regular and patient and still. The stars turn overhead, the same stars that the garrison soldiers watched on their night patrols 2,000 years ago. Orion rises in the east. The Great Bear circles the northern pole. The Milky Way stretches across the sky, a river of light, an echo of the Silk Road below. The wind moves along the wall. It has been moving along the wall for 2,000 years. It knows every tower, every battlement, every crack in the stone. It whispers through the arrow slits of the watchtowers. It stirs the grass that grows in the joints between the bricks. It carries the scent of the mountains, pine and dust, and the clean, cold smell of stone. The wall breathes, the way all great stone structures breathe, slowly, patiently, a rhythm measured not in seconds but in centuries. Sleep now. Let the mountains hold you. Let the wall stretch away in both directions, east to the sea and west to the desert, a line of stone and earth and human determination that has endured longer than most civilizations. 21,000 kilometers, 2,000 years, 1,000,000 hands, 1,000,000,000 bricks. A dragon across the mountains, sleeping in the starlight, waiting for no one. The wind whispers along the stone. It has been whispering for a very long time. It whispered when the first rammed earth was pounded into place on the northern frontier 3,000 years ago. It whispered when Qin Shi Huang's conscripts toiled and died in the mountains. It whispered when Han's soldiers lit their beacon fires against the Xiongnu. It whispered when Mongol horsemen rode south across the steppe. It whispered when Ming bricklayers set their courses along the ridgeline. It whispered when Wu Sangui opened the gates at Jiayuguan. And it whispers now, through the empty watchtowers, along the crumbling walkways, over the wild sections where the forest is slowly reclaiming what was borrowed from it. The wall does not mind. The wall has always been patient. It was built by people who thought in centuries, who planted trees they would never sit under, who laid stones their grandchildren would walk on. The wall is the work of a patient civilization, and it has inherited that patience. The stones settle, the stars turn. Somewhere on the steppe, far to the north, a horse whinnies in the darkness, an old sound, a familiar sound, a sound that the wall has been listening for 2,000 years. But tonight, there is nothing to fear. The horsemen are gone, the frontier is quiet, the wall sleeps. And so should you. Good night. Thank you for listening, and sweet dreams. If you enjoyed this, there are more stories waiting for you.